It's 1994, and the city of Montreal is under siege. The Hells Angels and the Rock Machine are in a fight to the death. It's a battle for control of the drug trade.
There was $1 billion a year to be made on drug sales.
One man is behind it all, the leader of the Hells Angels, Mom Boucher.
I was the first guy to see him kill someone.
Boucher wants complete and total control of Quebec at any cost.
He was in his own world, thought he was king, and nobody could hurt him.
For a while, it's just bikers killing bikers. Until civilians get caught in the crossfire. The public demands action. Police need to bring down Mom Boucher. And they find exactly what they need. An informant willing to betray the Hells Angels. But the informant is a lifelong criminal and a rising star within the Hells Angels. If the cops are going to stop Mom Boucher, they will have to do a deal with the devil. The Hells Angels first arrive in Canada in 1977. Their base is in Montreal, Quebec. The people of Quebec appear to immediately embrace the romantic myth of the hard-partying rebel biker.
The whole mystique of the gang captures the imagination of so many young men.
You know, it's hard to describe. It's born into you. It's a piece of you. From the time I was very, very young and saw the first pack of motorcycles going by, I just knew that that was going to be my life. They were the 1% of the world that didn't abide by anybody else's rules.
17-year-old kid, I want to be like them, see the big Harley, the big car, they all got nice girls. It's like in the movie. For me, it was very tempting. People come see you, they give you the tap on your back. You feel that you're in a family. You can do whatever you think as long as you don't get caught. That's a nice thrill.
But Quebecers will soon discover the truth about the Angels. They are building a criminal organization involved in extortion, prostitution, and drug dealing. And that they're willing to use savage violence to achieve their goals.
If you cross the Hells Angels, if you screw the Hells Angels, they'll kill you. I mean, there was no if, buts, or whatever. They'd kill you, and that was it.
The violence has a purpose: to protect and grow their criminal empire.
Once you become willing to use violence to that extent, your power increases. And eventually you find that you can take over all sorts of areas of organized crime.
One man is responsible for turning the Hells Angels into one of the most powerful crime machines the country has ever seen. His name is Mom Boucher.
Mom Boucher was sort of the ultimate, Montreal tough guy. He was from Hochelaga, which is sort of a tough inner city neighborhood. Big, strong, violent, many arrests before he even became a biker in his teens.
Boucher dropped out of school in grade 9. He was soon on the street, where drugs and crime provided an escape from the poverty of his family.
I was the first guy to see him kill someone in 1979 or 1980 at the Prison Bordeaux. Already he wants to show that he was someone.
The macho brotherhood of bike gangs was appealing to Boucher. He and friend Salvatore Cazzetta joined a gang called the SS in order to prepare for his dream to join the Hells Angels. In 1985, Boucher's opportunity arrives.
It was very, very quiet until the famous events in Lennoxville. And I think that's what started everything.
In 1985, there were 2 chapters of the Hells Angels in Montreal. Members of the Laval chapter were mainly interested in having a good time. They often used all the cocaine they were supposed to be selling. The Hells Angels from the more business-minded Sorel chapter decided enough was enough. A statement, Hells Angels style, was required. They invite the Laval chapter to a meeting in Lennoxville, where they gun down their own brothers, virtually wiping out the entire Laval chapter.
At that point, the Hells Angels had raised the bar of terror, intimidation, and violence.
They weren't like any bikers anyone had ever seen before.
The bikers turned killers made a costly mistake. They didn't kill everyone. The lone survivor goes straight to the cops, ratting out the killers from Lennoxville. Police arrest almost half of the Hells Angels in Quebec. It's a chance for Mom Boucher.
There was essentially within the Hells Angels sort of a vacuum. So you had guys like Mom Boucher who suddenly became, applicants, if you like, and became Hells Angels very quickly.
Boucher's old friend, Salvatore Cazzetta, is disgusted. He refuses to join Mom Boucher and the Hells Angels.
Cazzetta thought it was brutal that bikers would kill their own, as it were, and he vowed never to work with the Hells Angels.
And he decided to form the Rock Machine.
The friendship between Cazzetta and Boucher is over, forever. Mom Boucher joins the Hells Angels, and the Quebec Biker War begins. The Hells Angels and the Rock Machine go head-to-head in an all-out war for control of the Quebec drug territory.
You know, the biker gang wars began in 1987 as Mom was being named to the Hells Angels.
Boucher's vision for the Hells Angels is domination, power, and massive wealth. He wants total control of all drug dealing in Quebec, including the bars and clubs already being run by the Rock Machine.
And what he'd do, he'd visit every bar, anywhere in Montreal, that wasn't already controlled by the Hells Angels. He'd either force the guy who was selling in the bar to buy his drugs to be sold in the bar, or he'd force the owner of the bar to let his people sell. If the owner refused, the bar burned.
That's the intimidation. That's the key of the success of the Hells Angels, you know?
I mean, there was $1 billion a year to be made on drug sales, okay? And I mean, it's not because a couple of Rock Machine guys wanted a little bit over here that would have really hurt him that much. But it was his egotistic way he had, and he wanted the whole cake.
A brutal and bloody turf war has started.
Geez, I think there was 150 fires in Montreal in a period of 2.5 years. You know, they just kept burning clubs. There was bombings. There was shootings.
Every day we were wearing bulletproof vests. I always carry a gun with me. Change my car, I don't know how many times. I had, just to give you an example, I had, you buy that when you got a little baby, you put that in his room and you can hear if he wakes up like a little intercom. That's the best thing you cannot put in your car to hear when you go at night trying to sleep, to find out if somebody's going in your car or on your landing.
By the early 1990s, Mom Boucher has become the undisputed leader of the Montreal Hells Angels. Although his gang and the Rock Machine are killing each other on a regular basis, the public looks the other way. After all, it's just criminals killing criminals. Police, however, are growing concerned about the biker violence. But they have major problems. They can't crack the impenetrable world of the Hells Angels. And standard surveillance techniques are practically useless.
We find it's hard for undercover, almost impossible for undercover to infiltrate the Hells Angels.
Keeping the cops on the outside is the bikers' simple but effective membership process.
Within the Hells Angels structure, the entry is a hang-around, and maybe for a year or so, that guy will be a slave to the Hells Angels. He will literally, carry their bags, drive them wherever they want, always be at their beck and call. Once he's proved himself through crime, selling drugs, murder, beatings, this, that, and the other, he then becomes a prospect.
It would take you at least 5 years to go up the ranks to become a member. And there's not too many police force who can afford to wait 5 years before an investigation.
With no intelligence available from inside the Hells Angels, meaningful arrests can't be made. The best police can do is pull over bikers, hoping to match faces with street names. But the tables are about to turn. A super spy will hand police access to the secret world of the Hells Angels. Danny Kane was a small-town boy from rural Quebec. His parents were too poor to raise all of their 3 children, so at a young age, Danny was sent away to live with his childless uncle.
I think that had a lot to do with the development of his personality in the long run as a loner.
Danny was never a stellar student, and he loved motorcycles from the age of 16. And he was ambitious and lazy, which is two attributes which a lot of bikers share.
And that's how he got into breaking and entering, and into drugs, into selling guns, all of these things. And it just sort of snowballed from there and became worse and worse. He got himself a motorcycle.
Between the ages of 17 and 24, Kane racked up numerous criminal charges.
He almost beat to death 2 fellows who had stolen guns from him. While he was pistol whipping them, one of the guns went off and shot one of the guys in the head. And that was the first time he served sort of a fair amount of big time in prison. But it also gave him the pedigree to get involved in the Hells Angels.
Released from jail at the age of 26, Danny heads straight for the Hells Angels. His dream is to become a full-patch member.
These are the guys that were going to take him to the top of the criminal world. That's where he wanted to be.
Becoming a Hells Angel was Danny's way of getting money, of getting power, and getting respect. Basically to be noticed.
In addition to his criminal resume, Danny had certain qualities that were appealing to senior Hells Angels. He didn't do drugs, and he didn't whine like many bikers. His weakness was sex. Danny was constantly in bed with different people. And the scorn of a lover will one day be his undoing.
Kane had built quite a reputation for himself. He sort of came out of nowhere. He bulked up. He became a very intimidating sort of drug dealer and collector, and he'd done a lot of work for other high-up members of the Montreal Hells Angels.
One of those higher-up members is Hells Angels National President Walter Stadnik. While Mom Boucher is blasting through Quebec, Stadnik is expanding the Angels into new regions of Canada. Not everyone shares Stadnik's dream.
Walter was originally stonewalled in his attempts to establish links with the bikers in Ontario. The Los Brovos, the most powerful gang in Winnipeg, and Satan's Choice, which was the most powerful gang in Ontario, at one point rivaled the Hells Angels worldwide for membership and chapters, and signed sort of a deal of entente not to allow Hells Angels into their territory.
So Stadnik devises an ingenious new way to reach his goal.
Walter decided to start his own gang, called the Demon Keepers.
Stadnik's plan is simple and devious. The idea is to start a new gang to supply drugs at low prices. The biker Stadnik chooses to run the operation is Danny Kane. The deeper and darker part of Stadnik's plan is something Danny Kane will only see months later. For now, Danny is thrilled.
Danny was on cloud nine that he was being given charge because he was the head of the Demon Keepers. He was the one who was spearheading it, and he was convinced that, okay, I do this successfully, and that's my ticket to full patch.
There were some problems with it from the start.
I am not aware of, in my life, anyone ever being told to move to a new area to establish a chapter when they didn't know somebody there already. It's just really unusual.
Without any connections, the Demon Keepers went to bars and strip joints and basically just tried to sell drugs to people they didn't know.
They were French guys in a very English area. Spotting them was not a problem. On April 1st, 1994, Danny Kane is arrested.
They found drugs, they found guns, and they found a trunk full of Demon Keepers jackets. Cops knew what was going on. Kane took the blame for everything, even though he had the most to lose. He had previous convictions, and he had spent time in prison. And Walter assured Danny that he didn't blame him for the Demon Keepers' failure, and he was welcome in Montreal. But he made no promises other than that. He didn't make him a prospect, he didn't make him a member, and Danny felt slighted.
In many ways, it was very sort of Machiavellian. He told these guys, including Kane, we're going to go in there and we're going to take over. In reality, he knew that they had no chance of success whatsoever.
In prison, Kane realizes that he was only a minor pawn in Stadnik's grand plan, that the Demon Keepers never stood a chance at diverting police attention from Stadnik's expansion plans further out west.
Danny Kane realized that he had been used as sort of a diversion for Stadnik.
But Danny Kane refuses to be played as a patsy. He starts to dream about a plan to bring down Stadnik, Mom Boucher, and the Hells Angels. On the streets of Montreal, rival bike gangs are at war for control of the city's drug trade. Police have not been able to penetrate the wall of silence surrounding the Hells Angels. But a small crack is developing. Hells Angel associate Danny Kane is in jail. He thinks he was set up by senior Hells Angel Walter Stadnik, and revenge has become Danny's #1 priority.
He was furious that the Hells Angels had simply used him, and now he was in jail because of it.
And that's why I think he decided to approach us.
After 6 months in jail, Danny Kane is out. Almost immediately, he places a phone call to police.
Danny Kane was a very smart guy, viewed himself as a very smart guy, and viewed most of the other bikers as total dummies.
Danny Kane becomes an informant for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
He was out for revenge against the Hells Angels.
The police finally have a secret weapon. A super spy inside the Hells Angels. For Danny, the stakes could not be higher.
If the bikers found out that Danny was an informant, or even suspected that he was an informant, they would have killed him immediately. And very likely the death would have been a long and agonizing one.
For Danny, the risk was part of it.
He just loved the thrill, the high of fooling people. He loved to play one world off against each other. It gave him this feeling of power.
Now a police informant, Kane walks straight back into the Hells Angels clubhouse, where he is greeted with open arms.
It was easy for him once he did his time, because he did his time, didn't say a word came out, and he already had contacts within the Hells Angels. He always been hanging around the big guys, and he was always a servant, if you want. He was one of the type of guy that would do anything they would ask.
For now, Kane is content to be a foot soldier. It gives him access to information that he can pass on to police.
When he visited the RCMP, these meetings would take place very quickly.
The secret meetings take place in hotel rooms, usually 3 times a week. Soon, police are paying Kane $1,000 a week, and always in cash. Police get details about war plans, about who murdered who, and who was next. Besides being a police informant and a hang-around Hells Angel, Danny also juggles life with his girlfriend, Patricia. He tries to be a normal family man, a boyfriend, and father to Patricia's son.
His work was his work, and as soon as he came home, he was just Danny, no patch, no nothing. He was just good old Danny.
To survive, Kane rarely mixes his different worlds.
He developed over time a phenomenal capacity to separate his various lives.
There was a clear line between whatever he was doing and our lives.
Most of Danny's life, however, is spent with the Angels.
99% of his time was spent in that world. Everything else was secondary. His family was secondary. His kids were secondary. Any job he had was secondary. When you're with the Hells Angels, you're with the Hells Angels 24/7. You're at their beck and call 24/7. You're laden with pagers and cell phones, etc. And when they want you, you got to be there or you'll answer for it.
And that includes going to the gym on a daily basis.
There was this real aesthetic which developed, at least among Quebec Hells Angels, of almost the action figure look, the just outrageously large biceps and thighs.
Even at the gym, Kane is watching Boucher and listening, soaking up information, such as his plans to bomb rock machine clubs, bars, and strongholds.
He gave up a lot of information about the structure, who was involved, about who was making bombs, where the bombs were being placed around the city.
After 5 months, Kane is getting $2,000 a week for his reports, making him the highest paid RCMP informant in history.
You can't underestimate the financial element.
And Danny spends his money quickly, especially on hot women.
You know, money was always very, very of paramount importance.
So it allowed him to party with the big guys, to have the woman he wanted, to live life in the fast lane, and he really enjoyed it.
Deep down, Danny Kane loves the biker life. He still dreams of becoming a full patch angel. To prove his loyalty, Danny has certain responsibilities.
Initially, Kane was considered to be an explosives expert. He bombed and firebombed several establishments, several bars, and he certainly made a lot of bombs.
As the biker war continues, Danny Kane's commitment to the Hells Angels is getting deeper and darker. Police are in a dangerous position, in bed with a known criminal, a very smart criminal. In meetings with police, Danny never incriminates himself.
If I'm talking about criminal acts that I committed myself, I have to put them on the back of somebody else, which was something that Kane did throughout his time as an informant.
The cops need Kane and his inside information. They are desperate to bring down Mom Boucher, so they too have their own blind eye approach to Danny's criminal activities.
If you're trying to be more Catholic than the Pope, basically, you'll never get to the Hells Angels or to any type of mafia. You play the rules, you stay within your limits, and as long as you don't find out or don't know about a criminal act that he did, you have to keep pushing and keep hoping for to get more and more information.
While Danny Kane is playing both sides of the street, Mom Boucher is increasing his power by taking over rival territory. But it isn't easy. The Rock Machine is fighting back.
We need to recruit people that they're against what the Hells Angels trying to do.
So the Rock Machine begins to recruit small-time criminals and independent drug dealers to reinforce their troops in the war against Boucher's Hells Angels.
We were sure that we're gonna hit them so strong that they wouldn't know where that come from.
Boucher's attempt to take over the Quebec underworld escalates into an all-out war.
So I guess they realized that they had an opposition.
On August 9th, 1995, everything changes. In a quiet residential neighborhood, the Hells Angels set off a bomb intended for a rival. For the first time, there is an innocent victim. A piece of shrapnel kills 11-year-old Daniel DeRoche, who was playing with friends. His death infuriates the public. They demand immediate police action. But have authorities been standing on the sidelines for too long? The war between the Hells Angels and the Rock Machine has spilled onto the streets of Montreal. There is outrage over the death of 11-year-old Daniel DeRoche. The bikers have crossed the line. The public demands action from the authorities.
Before that, people were scared of the bikers, but by and large, bikers were only killing other bikers, so many in the public just saw it sort of as their own private business. But now that it had affected not only a member of the public, but a child, people became outraged.
The thing that hurt me in this is that it was a remote control. It wasn't done 3 miles away. It was done, the guys were at least across the street. They saw the kids on the sidewalk. There was no way they didn't see them. They didn't care. They have a job to do, here it goes, boom. And when they blew it, they didn't give a
The death of DeRoche appears to be of little concern to Mom Boucher.
I mean, a kid died, you know, and the next day you see him flashing smiles, and he knew it was his gang who had just blown the Jeep up, you know, so he got under our skin more than, you couldn't like this guy.
Police action is swift. A special task force is created with one purpose: to bring down Mom Boucher and the bikers.
And the public went nuts. They wanted to double the police department. They wanted to give us millions of dollars, you know. I mean, they were ready now. Let's attack these guys.
Other Hells Angels chapters and bike gangs try to convince Mom Boucher to stop the war. Their motive is greed. Increased police action is making it harder to conduct their illegal activities.
The majority of the Hells Angels in Canada, all of the rock machine, all of the banditos in the world, all wanted peace up there.
But Boucher refuses. He won't halt his campaign to control Quebec. Police looked for any reason to get him off the street. Boucher is arrested for a minor charge, illegal possession of a firearm.
I don't think that we were able to interrogate him for more than a couple of minutes before it came out. You know, talk to my lawyer, I don't want to talk to you. He was scornful of the police.
After only 6 months in jail, Boucher is back on the street. But while in jail, Boucher heard some disturbing news from guards. An informant has infiltrated deep inside his Hells Angels. Now Boucher is obsessed with finding the rat.
Plain and simple, he didn't trust no one.
So he had this sort of short list of possible informants. Quite soon after that, Kane got this call to show up immediately at the Sorel clubhouse. And Kane was understandably freaked out.
Kane's fear is unfounded. There is another rat in the gang.
And it was revealed that a fairly high-ranking member of the organization, in fact, the hitman for the organization, had been cooperating with the police.
The hitman is taken into custody and publicly rolls over on his Hells Angels brothers. Mom Boucher is untouched, and now he's more paranoid than ever. Police breathe a sigh of relief. Their super spy remains in the game. They still have a chance to bring down Boucher. Mom Boucher is convinced there's a spy in his gang. A test for Kane is necessary. Danny will be asked to commit murder. Still trying to expand into Western Canada, Walter Stadnick invited David Boyko, the most respected biker in Winnipeg, to a Hells Angels party in Halifax. At the party, a Hells Angels biker named Donald Magnuson picked a fight with Boyko.
Then the next day, Boyko's body was found at Dartmouth, across the bay from Halifax. Everybody knew Magnuson had done it.
The Hells Angels were furious that you invited this Las Brovas to a party in Halifax and then you murder him. It's not a nice way to treat your guests, particularly when you want that chapter to become a Hells Angels chapter.
Now Boucher has his chance to test Danny's allegiance.
He was charged with getting rid of Magnuson, who happened to be a good friend of his. This caused him a great deal of anxiety.
It put Danny Kane in a terrible spot for obvious reasons.
Killing Magnuson will satisfy Mom Boucher and earn Kane official status in the Hells Angels. It's what Kane desperately wants. But for his police handlers, it is a serious problem.
You know, you can't freely go about killing people if you're a police informant.
But if Danny refuses the murder assignment, there will be only one explanation for Mom Boucher. Danny Kane must be a police informant. Mom Boucher has asked Danny Kane to murder a Hells Angel. It is a serious problem for Kane. Can he keep his reputation with Boucher and still work with the police? But Danny is an expert manipulator. Soon after being given the murder assignment, Danny tells police everything is cool. It's all been taken care of. According to Danny, he has turned the tables on Mom Boucher. He planted the seed of an idea with Boucher, and Mom runs with it. It's a new rule for the Angels. If a full patch member needed to be killed, it had to be done by another full patch member.
Knowing Mom Boucher's only too keen to exercise his authority on every step of the way, would have grabbed onto it as a way that he could have risen above everybody else and made this grand pronouncement about only a full patch can kill a full patch.
Kane is off the hook for the murder. He doesn't have the status to kill full patch member Donald Magnuson. Police are relieved. Once again, Danny has avoided disaster. But they still don't have enough information to put Mom Boucher away. They need Kane to get more and better evidence. Danny has spent almost 2 years trying to move up the ranks of the Hells Angels, but he is still a low-level hang-around.
There were a few problems with Danny Kane that sort of prevented him moving up. There were suspicions over what he was doing.
Being paid $2,000 a week, he had a lot of money to pay for lunch and booze and stuff like that, driving the big car. So at one point, some of the full-fledged members started to ask him, where do you get your money from?
Danny goes to the police for help.
So he says he needs a cover business. At this time, he's living in on the periphery of the gay village in Montreal.
The Hells Angels already control clubs and bars in the gay village. Danny figures he has a new way to exploit the gay community.
He decides that he's going to start up a free gay newspaper which will bankroll itself with telepersonal ads.
Police are willing to solve Danny's problem, but he needs to come through for them. They give him $35,000 to set up his newspaper.
Few people put personal ads in it, including this guy M.A. Simard, who was a small-time fraud artist living with his mother in a suburb of Quebec City, can't stay out of trouble despite the best efforts of his mother and those around him. He puts an ad saying that he's looking for a boyfriend.
And Danny answers the ad.
This was a real high. He enjoyed this guy. It was fun. And he became a sexual partner with the guy. They became lovers. He was conflicted on a sexual level. He was married with children, but he was also had homosexual tendencies. His relationships with people like M.A. Simard and others were generally kept quiet from the Hells Angels because they frown on homosexual activity.
Being a child molester, being an informant, being gay are all thought of the same way by the majority of the motorcycle club members in the world.
To Danny, Simard is a play toy and somebody he can control. It was easy for him because Simard was so infatuated with Danny and his criminal lifestyle.
This was one guy who was just dead keen on becoming part of the whole macho biker thing. So Danny Kaye thought, you know, if the Hells Angels want me to murder somebody, I don't have to get out of it anymore. I've got this guy.
Danny starts to introduce M.A. to his Hells Angels buddies, a potential new recruit. And he gets Simard involved in criminal activities. But soon Danny regrets bringing Simard into the fold.
It was just the character of M.A. Simard. He just talked and bragged about everything he had done. He seemed to be totally incapable of understanding the repercussions of what he did.
After a few months, Danny Kaye realizes that M.A. Simard is a liability.
The Hells Angels were rapidly coming to the conclusion that he was more trouble than he was worth.
Kaye is having less and less contact with police, and they are getting frustrated. They start to wonder if Danny Kaye wants to be a biker more than a police informant. They put the pressure on him. They want information that will lead to arrests. Police learn that M.A. Simard hid the gun used to kill Jean-Marc Casey, a low-level dealer for the Rock Machine. It's in a locker at the gym. Police stake out the gym. They arrest Simard when he retrieves his gun. In custody, Simard is a pushover for police. And he tells them some shocking information. It's a story that turns the tables on police super spy Danny Kaye.
He started talking about this killing in Halifax that none of the Montreal police were aware of, which was the killing of Robert McFarlane.
McFarlane was this loose cannon out in Halifax, but he also boasted all over the place that he was allied to the Hells Angels. They don't like that. They warned him. He didn't accept the warnings. In the end, they had him killed.
M.A. Simard had shot McFarlane, but he had an accomplice. It is police super spy Danny Kaye.
That suddenly created a real hornet's nest of trouble for the RCMP.
Police are forced to set him up. Danny is called to a meeting. When he arrives, Halifax RCMP are there to arrest him.
Geez, we were so close to our goal, and now we have to start from scratch again, because we have no choice. If you get an informant committing such a criminal act there, you have to stop working with him.
In the hands of local police, Kaye is flown to Halifax.
Kaye may have been extremely, excessively confident that the police would protect him at all costs, that he could rat out Simard. Even if Simard in turn sold Kaye out, the police would somehow engineer it that Kane wouldn't be arrested for the McFarlane hit or any other crimes that Simard might know about.
But Danny Kane is wrong. He is charged with murder and placed in jail. In 1997, Danny Kane is behind bars, and police are back to square one. Their deal with the devil has returned nothing. With no inside information for police to use, the biker war continues. More violence, more bloodshed, more death. In the next 5 years, Mom Boucher and the Hells Angels will do what no other crime organization has done. They will become Canada's first coast-to-coast criminal empire. Stronger in Canada than any other country in the world, they appear unstoppable. Almost. Because Danny Kane still has an encore performance to give. And it will be his best ever.